We actually have our very first time, two people as guests at the same time. Together, you guys have been hugely successful in the mortgage business.
The number one thing that we've grown is the moments in time that we've taken massive risks.
A lot of people think they can just figure it out on their own, or I know better than them, when you could be learning from somebody who's already been there, done that. I would just say getting good mentors and paying attention. That's why we love community.
You know, you guys are in the business of public speaking. These are big events you're putting on, and everybody that you bring into those has to be a public speaker. What are some of the biggest challenges of putting on giant events like that?
In life, there's a blueprint for everything. There's no need to start over. Hear from industry leaders, those at the top of their fitness journey, and real estate gurus. They tell you exactly how they did it. All you have to do is listen, learn, and execute. This is The Blueprint with Brad Rice.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Blueprint. And today, we actually have our very first time, two people as guests at the same time. So we kind of rearranged the furniture a bit, you know, the cameras. Hopefully this works out well. You guys can see. Obviously, you'll be able to hear if you're on audio. But let me welcome Don Goatling. And am I saying that right?
Goettling.
Goatling. Well,
but it's funny.
We'll go with your pronunciation.
And you'll know why now my nickname in motocross is the GOAT. Because of that. Just
well,
because of that.
If you're going to spell it that way, I mean,
right.
We'll get the O
it's
out
not
of
your
there.
fault.
We'll go with Goatling.
Yeah.
I probably should have checked that before we started filming.
No, I'm
that's all
the
right.
name hacker. It's okay. I understand it.
Okay. Well, touche.
Yes.
All right. And his business partner, Gino Fronti, but we'll get to him in a minute because he's been on before. So, Don, 38 years in the mortgage industry. You've got me tops. I started in 93.
All right.
So
87.
You started just before me. In fact, my first business partner started in 87 too. So, yeah, but 38 years, man. Top producer, branch manager, regional manager. You've managed multiple offices doing over 300 loans a year, 1.5 billion a month, sorry, but over 1.5 billion annually. It's a lot of business that you managed. More kind of interesting than that, or in parallel, is that this whole time you also been a Supercross racer. And so that's super cool. We're going to get into that. But you have achieved top 10 finishes in the world for 60 and older, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
And you've been in 50 or more than 50 pro classes.
Well, it was the 60 class, which is my age group, but I also raced the kids, I call them, the 50-year-olds, and I got 8th in the world in that as well.
Those are kids.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
8th in the world.
Yes.
In the world.
Yes.
All right. I want to hear about that. Anyway, I'm guessing you're a little competitive. Is that right?
Terrible.
Maybe a little
horribly,
bit. Okay.
yes.
I always say, like, especially if it relates to hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, it's sick.
Anything like darts,
Racquetball,
cornhole, beer
racquetball.
pong, badminton, whatever.
Yep. Yep. Actually, that's a pretty common thing for people that are in Supercross. All right. So together with Gino, his longtime business partner, literally they're shaping the mortgage industry and the future of the mortgage industry. And we're going to really get into this because I'm super excited for them. You may recognize Gino from a podcast last year, but he's also a Southern California native and has been successful in the mortgage industry, just as I have. So we've known each other in and about for a long time, but really never done business together. Yeah. Who knows what the future will hold.
Right.
Together, they really are making waves in the mortgage business. They've had an annual event and conference called Momentum Builder that just went through a giant acquisition by acquiring Todd Duncan's Sales Mastery. That's been around for
30 years.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe more than 30 years. Since 92, was it?
Yeah. He took 2 years off, but he went 30 years and then he took a break, and that's when we reached out to him. Yeah.
So some interesting things.
When they say when opportunity knocks, right? He took a year off and we're like, what's that about?
Yeah, that's interesting. You paid attention to that. You got to pay attention.
Called. We didn't wait to see what happened.
Nice.
I actually called Todd and said, "What are you doing with your legacy, and who's going to carry it on? And if you sell it to a marketing company and don't talk to us, I'll kick your butt."
So let's start there. That's a perfect segue. So okay, so you guys have run Momentum Builder. I think it was this is a 5th year?
No, this would be the 7th year.
7th year, okay. The 7th year. Had you had Todd at the events? Like, how did you know him? So he's been, because I apologize, I have not been to one.
good
I
questions.
never got a
You will
personal
be.
invite before, and that's what I wait for. So, okay, so you knew Todd.
Actually, he changed my life and career.
Okay, let's.
Literally,
how did
I
he do
almost,
that?
And it's an interesting story for those listening because we're always trying to improve ourselves. That's what your show is all about. That's what we try to accomplish. Well, back in the day, when I was younger in the mortgage industry, I almost quit because I was trading hours for dollars and running out of hours.
Okay.
And I almost quit because I'm like, this is a stupid industry. I can't make any more money because I don't have any more hours.
Can you, for the people that are listening that are maybe in the mortgage business or sales in general, can you explain, because in the mortgage business, we're generally commission only, not everything. If you work for a bank, that's not the case.
Right.
So what was it when you first started? Where were you, and why do you say you traded hours for dollars?
I worked for a few different companies. I actually got recruited straight out of college at Cal State Northridge with a finance degree, and nobody goes to school saying I'm going to be in the mortgage business. I don't think anyone, unless their parents maybe were in it. And I dove in, and I'm like Gino. I've had a strong work ethic pushed through me through my dad, and so I didn't have any problem working hard, and therefore I did anything I needed to do, what I could do, whatever, but I wasn't working smart. And fortunately, somebody, when I was thinking about quitting, they were like, you're just doing it wrong. I'm like, oh, thanks. And they basically said, you need to go to Sales Mastery, and you need to meet Todd Duncan. And I'm like, okay. And it changed
What
my
year
career.
was that? Because you said you started in 87.
98, I think.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So,
okay.
a long time ago.
Is
but
that when he wrote his first book? Was that
it was
98?
right after he wrote High Trust Selling.
Okay, got it.
Right around there.
Okay.
And once I met him, I learned how to duplicate myself, how to not work with I was working with the wrong people was the deal. But I thought I had to work with anyone just to get business, and they're like, him and Jim McMahon taught me that if there's enough people do business your way, not to worry about those who don't. And it just changed how I handle my career, and then he also aligned me with the right tech, the right coaches, all the right people, and then I met David Savage and Barry Habibs and all the people that you really need to know to excel in this industry.
Yeah.
And it helped me. It's amazing when you excel at something, you like it that much more and you get better at it.
Yeah.
So that's why Todd and I have become friends for years. And then I got a big push was getting to speak on his stage, and now to think that we're aligned as partners is unfathomable.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's a dream come true.
So you were introduced to Todd's, his training and that sort of thing in the late 90s. When did you first meet him? Was it during that? Because he had a big following. I mean,
yeah, but I didn't know who he was, believe it or not, before
Okay.
that. Luckily, the company I started working for, CTX Mortgage at the time, was big advocates of it, and they basically forced all of us to go, like we do with our team.
Yeah.
Because we know the value of it. And then I met him, and I just stayed in touch with him on a regular basis. And then over time, we became friends.
Okay.
Because unlike, and this is a suggestion for anyone, a lot of people go to those things and they tend to go to a couple of the sessions and then go party.
That's right.
I'm really good about, I go hang out with Dave Savage and learn something from him. I go learn and meet Barry Habib or Sue Woodard or Tim Broad. I go and I met all these people, and I got the insider information how to get better and who to meet next. And it really changed, my whole career. And then I just carry this down to Gino and all the people who have worked with me.
And what he's saying is he's a groupie.
Yeah.
Right, he just followed them around.
I was that guy.
This
But it's
kid won't leave us
interesting, right?
alone.
Yeah, so if you're a mortgage groupie and you hang out with all these people, by osmosis, you raise the level of your conversations, and the
100%.
way you speak, and everything that you do, and then you start hanging out with them, and they invite you to dinners, and then you get to play credit card roulette, Don's favorite.
What? All right, there's a story there.
There is. There was, as a groupie, this is funny because they'll get a kick out of it because you think, oh, it's just, it's a Cinderella story from there. But, I was a groupie, so I was hanging out with all these people, and I switched coaches to Ron Quintero, God rest his soul, a good friend
absolutely.
of mine.
We talked a bit about that,
Yeah,
didn't we, Jay?
and so he liked me a lot because he loved my energy and my willingness to learn and do whatever I needed to do. And so he started bringing me around with all the other speakers. And the speakers all hung out together. They go to dinners together and have like, really nice dinners, steak dinners. And he invited me once. He goes, "You want to go with us to the, speakers dinner?" I'm like, "Oh, I get to go hang out with all the rock stars, my heroes."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, come on." And I'm like, "Well, I'm with my buddy. Can I bring him?" He's like, Yeah, bring him along. So we're having dinner. And well, at that time, honestly, my buddy and I probably had 2 nickels to rub together.
Okay.
We barely made it to the event. We were broke, but we still invested in going to the event. And we're thinking we'll just order whatever we need to order, salad or whatever. And we watch, and they're breaking out bottles of Silver Oak. They're all having ribeyes and ordering, seafood towers. And my buddy and I are looking at each other going, we are so hosed. And I don't know if I can afford my share. And then they come out and they're like, Ron Quintero comes out with a big bowl and he goes, "All right, let's go, boys." And like, "Oh, we're doing this." And we're like, "What are we doing?" And I thought I was excited. "What are we doing?" And all they start throwing credit cards in the bowl. And I'm like, "What's this about?" And they're like, "Oh, we do this all the time, and we pull whoever credit card we pull pays for dinner." And we're like, "The whole dinner, the wine, everything?" And they're like, "Yeah." And sure enough, of course, they pull out one of the cards. I think we were set up. They pull out one of the cards, and my buddy and I both had the exact same card, and we both froze. And it was my buddy's. Like, oh.
Oh, no.
And he ended up having to pay for it. He goes, "It took me an entire year to pay that thing off."
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
We do that to people now.
Oh, I'm sure
We got to
you do.
pass down the tradition.
Oh, you're
yes.
giving away our secrets.
All right, we're gonna go grab coffee together.
Right? Yeah, no big steak dinner.
No Mastros for you guys. That's hilarious. So super cool. I want to hear about the first time that you were invited on stage, because look, there's a lot of people that begin that transition and have over the last couple of years in any industry, but I see it in the mortgage industry. It's more relevant for me. And I'll see somebody on the stage for the first time. I'll see them very nervous, and I'll see them maybe not deliver it the way they want to. And they may never get back on stage after that. Mm-hmm. It's about, even doing a podcast, it's about the reps. You're not going to be, my first episode is not going to be as good as my 100th episode. But you've got to take yourself out of that position of, analyzing yourself, over analyzing, and just be a human about it. The nerves are going to be there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. You can talk to anybody that's been on stage 100, 1,000 times. They still get a little nervous before they go up.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, though, Brad, that today it's easier than ever because authenticity is more valuable than perfection.
For sure.
Where it wasn't like that in the past. In the past, perfection was expected.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but that doesn't eliminate the emotional things that go inside you when you get up on stage.
If you really care, because I've even watched him transition, Gino, to I can wing it to, oh shit, I got to get good at this.
You know what? It's got to hurt once, right? You make one time that you're not ready and you make that mistake.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll never let that happen again.
Okay.
Right.
Is that like a comedian that tells a joke that nobody laughs at?
Pretty much.
Yeah. He bombed once.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bombed twice, actually, that I could think of where I'm like, wow, I was not prepared for that. Or I was prepared, but I still, you have to learn to react to things differently because I got upset about something and so I shut down completely.
And then you started thinking inside.
Well,
right?
yeah, because
I
wasn't happy with the way the interview was going, and I had expectations of how the interview should go.
That.
Yeah.
And then that person let me down during the interview, and I froze, I paralyzed, and I was like, "You take it."
Got it.
And just the guest we were interviewing was Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
It's
just Gary V.
Yeah,
that
just
before.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No big deal.
Yeah, but you learn, and like you said, those like it's funny, like motocross. I've been racing for since I was a kid for 50 years now, and everybody's like, "Well, you probably don't even get nervous on the line anymore." I'm like, "You kidding me? The day I'm not nervous is the day I quit, because that means I don't care."
Yeah, well, you don't care, but also, I think the nerves heighten your senses, and so without that, honestly, you could probably hurt yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's an amount of that the body needs in order to energize you to perform.
I mean, that's why we have fight or flight hormones, right?
Yeah.
So that we could be prepared for the moment when things get tough.
100%. That's correct. So tell me, when did Todd invite you on? Was that the first time speaking on stage?
First major.
Okay.
I've always been in front locally, like you probably do, in front
Office
of real estate,
meetings.
and I don't worry about those of us, no, we know more than most real estate agents. Sorry, it's a fact. So we're pretty comfortable because we're giving them good value and things they need to learn. So I'm comfortable with that. But this was in front of all my peers.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of people were like, so I asked Todd, I go, someday I want to be on your stage. And Todd helped me a lot because he goes, okay, you want to be up here? And I said, yes. He goes, when? Didn't just say someday. He goes, I'm going to put the date in my phone right now, and I'm going to call you.
Okay.
And I said, in 2 years, I want to be on your stage. He goes, all right. Then you better prep and be prepared, and I'll call you, and we'll make sure you're prepared for it.
And when was this approximately? What year?
Do you remember what year? He's better at dates than I
Yeah,
do.
but this was, I don't know, 13 years ago?
Yeah, probably
Okay.
like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a big deal for me to get on Todd's stage because
Actually,
Todd.
I can tell you, it was 2012.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Got it.
We were at Cherry
Yeah.
Creek Mortgage at the time.
Yeah.
Ah, all right.
Yeah.
And Todd makes you prepare. So our Momentum Builders model a lot over what Todd's done over the years. He's been very successful for 30 years for a reason, adding true value, and he cares. So he made me practice. Like I had to go on calls with him and share what I'm going to talk about and the timing. It's like if you're a minute late, I'll hook you and you'll never be on my stage again.
Which means I watched the presentation and watched him practice it at least 50 to 100 times. And in the room the day before, over and over and over again. I mean, but the reality is that's a testament to what you should do when the moment's important to you.
Yeah.
You should practice. You should be ready.
Sure. Absolutely. That must have been really fun for you.
No, he hated it.
Well, it wasn't bad, but it was like,
He got
don't
over
say
it.
this word, change that word.
Yeah, you're helping him.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then it
yeah.
gets hard because as the other thing is,
You
Don's
overthink
very
it.
structured and I'm really wing it, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere in between is probably the best place. When we
Yeah, you've
learned
helped
it.
me like
Yeah.
chill and be more authentic.
Yeah.
Because I'm an over preparer. Now I'm learning to properly prepare. Let's put it that way.
There you go.
Yeah. And then look, that's somewhere in the middle, right? Because
Yeah.
I underprepared and now
You're
prepare
properly
more.
preparing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you're getting ready for this thing over the course of 2 years, and then where did you go on stage?
It was in Palm Springs in front of 1,500 to
1,400,
2,000.
Big
Yeah, big audience. And Todd sits right in front
Okay.
and stares at you the whole time. Like you're like, oh, I'm on a game. But luckily I did relax. I'm like, I'm going to have fun with this thing.
Okay.
I literally jumped off one stage to another stage and had a lot of fun with it and everything.
Told the joke, first thing right out of your mouth.
Yeah.
He said, I'm just one espresso short of Jeremy Forcier right now.
Had some fun slides done to make people
Okay.
laugh and relax and stuff. So it was a good,
a good
open-
experience.
good experience and stuff.
Okay.
But we've had to go through that with speaking. Like I've done mastermind and other speaking engagements. We speak in front of 200 to 1,000 people pretty comfortably now.
Yeah.
But we've made our mistakes, like our podcast and our radio show. It took us 6 months to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a lot of work. But just like mortgage, you have to put in the time. We talked to our team. Or what are you an expert at?
That's
Are
right.
you just winging it? Are you just like everyone else? Or are you an expert at really giving good advice?
That's right. Or even a product.
Yes.
What's interesting about that, Brad, is that when you take the time, like the first year, there's a massive improvement curve at anything you're trying to get better at. You're like, I'm getting better, I'm getting better, I'm getting better. Well, then it starts to get harder to get better because the corrections are smaller.
Yeah.
Then you really have to hone in on, I could have, now it's just fine tuning. And with the radio show and the podcast, what was interesting was like in year 7, we got better.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see like over time where you're like, maybe it takes like the Starbucks story where it took them 20 years to become successful, or most people 20, 30 years in something to hit
Become
their
an
peak.
overnight
That elite
success.
peak. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so I think people try to rush things and they think they should be great at something after a year or two of doing it. And it's just not the way life is.
Yeah, you know what? That's something I want to drill down into in a minute. I do want to kind of finish this whole thought about getting on stage because I think there's something there that people should hear. I think there are a lot of people that get put in the position of having an opportunity of having an audience. So we have an audience much bigger than you could have without being on a stage today using social media, right?
Right.
People get a little frustrated that they might be posting all the time and they're getting 200 views or 300 or maybe it's 600 or 800 and they're like, why is my stuff not going viral? But you're still talking to 200 people or 500 or and you're doing that every time you post. And so give yourself some grace, and it may take time. It might take a year. It might take 3 years. It might take 5. It doesn't happen overnight, and it could just take one video that you put out there or one post that goes viral and puts you on the map. And it's about being consistent. I think that what we do is we wind up in this position where we talk negatively to ourselves. And this is, nobody's immune from this. I've done it, you've done it, you've done it. You start down a road somewhere, it's not going the way you want it to go, or you overthink it. You might be mid-sentence, you overthink it, and now you're talking to yourself and like, holy shit, I'm frozen. Like, I got to get out of this. And then you can't get yourself out of your own thoughts. And you got to develop these ways of overcoming that as quickly as possible, because it's going to happen again, but overcoming it as quickly as possible so you can deliver value to people. So thinking back to like when you started, or you're probably on stage or in front of, like you said, 200 to 1,500 people regularly now, maybe some of those times where you did feel like, oh man, why did I go down that road? I didn't even mean to talk about this. Right. And how you correct that. So for people that are, whether you're filming yourself on camera or you're standing in front of a group of people, we're going to experience the same thing. But how do you quickly pivot, get yourself out of that moment into something that's a better delivery?
I'd say if you're considering joining the AmeriFund team, it's a really good idea.
We as processors at AmeriFund Home Loans support the loan officers in every aspect of the loan once it comes into processing, because we want them out there marketing themselves and originating more loans and supporting more borrowers.
Competitive commission plans are a given, and powerful technology is expected, but what truly sets us apart is our culture. We've built a solid support system for our loan officers.
If you're interested in joining the AmeriFund team, go to amerifund.com/careers.
Good question. Because like you said, everybody deals with it. The number one thing that we have learned is this. Silence is okay.
There you go.
Because if you watch a lot of speakers with the ums and the that, it's a crutch. It gives them time to think about what they want to say versus, and we've learned, just like you have, I guarantee you have people that are, what's the, absolutely. Like you ask a question and they'll say, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. That's their crutch word.
Yeah.
That's their thinking word, or ums or whatever. We've just learned to take a beat. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to mess up and then go back on track. And we've had to do that with, like you interview people. We've had to do that interviewing people where we weren't prepared, and we had very articulate people that we thought would just run for the fences, and all we had to do is tee them up and watch them go.
Yeah.
And then we ask a question like, hey, you're in the real estate industry. You've been doing it for quite a while. You have some, I'm sure you have some great opinions about the real estate market right now. Like we feel it's pretty hot right now. What do you think? And they'll go, I agree. And you're like, what? And now we've learned how to peel it back.
Yeah.
And re-ask the question a different way with our opinion on it that gives them time to think about it and then piggyback on what you say versus dead silence because you weren't prepared to pull it back.
Yeah.
Now we're like, if it gets quiet, we know what to do.
Yeah, or just like every trade, there's always tools that you can use. And so one we learned from Renee Rodriguez was when you find yourself in that moment, pause, silence, and say, and I tell you this because.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for some reason, that phrase gets your mind in the right place to say, why am I telling him this? Oh, it's because of this.
I love that.
So it's just a real quick, it's a professional tool in the tool belt when you're a speaker to say, and I tell you this because.
Yeah.
And then you deliver the why.
Yeah.
Hardest class I ever had.
That's a whole story in of itself, by the way. Have you been?
My business partner, Jamie, tells me all about it. We have another person who works for us that did it. They cried and all the other things.
I didn't even want to go back after the first night.
I keep trying to talk him into it. We should go back and do it again. He's like, I'm not going.
It was hard.
It's hard.
Very hard.
But
it was great.
I understand that. I have not done it. And I know Renee, and we had him on my other podcasts. And yeah, that's powerful, though. The power of the pause is, I think, really important. And that's something that when you do enough reps, you learn that. You're not going to get it the first time. And you're going to feel nervous, and you're going to have issues where you say things you didn't mean to say, and it just came out of your mouth. And you got to be able to pause. And that's a great tool in your tool belt. Like, what I'm trying to say is this, or in other words, or the reason I'm telling you this. Yeah. And you will hear your most articulate speakers do that perpetually, right?
Oh, you start picking up on those those tools.
Yep.
After listening to a Renee or other experts, you're like, oh, he's using that tool. Oh, they're using that tool.
No, he uses it all the time. Like,
it's a system.
It's a President Obama uses that like in every interview, doesn't he? Like
And
literally.
every movie has the same attributes that have to be in it.
That's right.
To make it successful.
It's similar to a basic sales tool when you first learn feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's the same concept. It's tools in the tool belt.
That's
it's
right.
something that you learn kind of early on. Maybe it's not super advanced, but it helps tremendously.
Yeah.
It's really a really good help. The other thing is, as you have, especially when you're doing things like this, you have to have a few things to just talk about, just have conversation about. Because you could stop a keynote and have an interaction with somebody. And that gives you time to go think about, where was I in the keynote? What can I do while you're having an interaction?
That's right.
So that's another trick.
That's another great tool to have. And you guys are in the business of public speaking. That's really what you're in the business of, right? You're not you're not teaching small classes. You're not doing online classes. These are big events you're putting on, and everybody that you bring into those has to be a public speaker, and you want them to be good. And if they're good, they'll come back. And if they're not good, they may never come back.
Yeah. We require them. I mean, we do our homework too. We make sure that they're well prepared. We know what their topics are. We make sure speakers aren't stepping over other speakers' topics. Because I've been speaking at events. I'm like, I got asked to go speak, and I'll call it this mastermind event in front of 2,000 people, and I was all prepared. Yeah. Except the speaker two before me had the exact same topic.
Oh man.
I had to pivot with an hour left on speaking about something else because they just spoke on the same thing, and because they didn't think about making sure that the value being and the theme and the flow of the entire event was consistent.
It's funny you say that. I was just at an event recently where the topics overlapped each other. They were very, very similar. It was the theme of the event, but it was just really similar, and it was hard to kind of carve out, like, I really need to concentrate more on this rather than this since they already spoke about it. But there's an art to it. What are some of the biggest challenges of putting on giant events like that? Are you a tech investor looking to shape the future of real estate? HomePie is the #1 for sale by owner marketplace, and we are revolutionizing the way homes are bought and sold. I'd love to hear from you. Just email invest@homepie.com and let's chat. Now back to the show. We talked a bit about the financial side of it.
That's difficult. But I think, what we were just to stay on task of what we were just talking about, the stitch together is really challenging. Making sure there's a flow is something that's incredibly difficult as it relates to putting together an event. And I think one of our secret skills that we learned, I don't know if it was by mistake, but we said, hey, wouldn't it be great to put all the speakers in a speakers dinner the night before? And when we did that at the Sheraton. That was Momentum Builder 2. Mm-hmm. And we did it at an Italian restaurant. And guess what happens? All the speakers are drinking, they're hanging out together, they're talking to each other. And then the next day when they're on stage, they'll be like, oh, and Sue Woodard's coming up next. And you can't wait to see what she's going to talk about because she told me all about it last night and it's incredible. And then they started pitching each other, and they started understanding what everybody's keynotes were about the night before. And it created this magic where everything seemed cohesive. And that
we built a community.
Yeah.
Like each event's its own community.
That's a great idea. Like the idea of that, the concept of that is really good. I find myself when I'm speaking at events watching the people before me and tying what I say into what they said. And just like so-and-so said, this, just before me or this, like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. This is how you do that. So, that makes a lot of sense, that cohesiveness. So that's one of the things, obviously, you've learned through all the years of doing this. But what are some of the biggest challenges that still exist? And as you think about it, as it pertains to now combining sales mastery to momentum builder.
Well, I would say one of the main things that helps us is the fact that actually as public speakers, as you call it, we're actually more brand ambassadors. Our job is really being really good hosts. It's not about us being the forefront and the top speakers. In fact, a lot of the events, we don't do much speaking per se, other than bringing out the obvious of what you just listened to. Make sure you heard this. Yeah. Make sure you pay attention to this. The next speaker's going to talk about this, and just teeing things up. But really, we help find the right people that are relevant today That's the big thing, because you've seen speakers who are like, I've heard their speech for 20 years. It hasn't changed, and it's old school. That doesn't even play out anymore. It's old, where we make sure that every year we bring up what's relevant today, and we've actually shortened most of the speaking engagements. Now they get a TED Talk.
Okay.
So we've had people tell stories, and after a while, you watch, and I pay attention to events, and I watch people, and they start getting on their phones after so many minutes, and they get distracted, and they're no longer engaged, because we have very short attention spans, i.e. why a TED Talk's 18 minutes. So we've actually shrunk down. We made our speakers go to the point in 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes, and then we can do live Q&A afterwards to make sure people understood the message and how to apply the message.
When did you start doing that?
Last year.
Okay.
And
it was good.
Everybody loved it, including the speakers. It's funny. A lot of speakers are pissed. They're like, what do you mean I only get 20 minutes? I'm like, trust me, it'll force you to get to the point quicker.
Okay. How did you get Barry to do only 20 minutes?
We haven't got him.
Okay.
Barry's got an asterisk by
come
him.
on.
Yeah.
We talked about that on the way here, because I have to have a tough conversation with Barry. And Barry's my buddy, love him to death. But we're going to actually ask him to change his up a little bit. So Barry, Todd, those people were like, they're trustworthy.
Give them a little
though.
grace.
Well, they're trustworthy. They're the
But they
pros
also have
of
really
pros.
interesting topics, and people are very interested in the relevant and all the other things.
And
that's
they're
engaging.
very cautious about. Barry practices 100 times before he gets on. So does Todd. I don't really have to worry about them providing value. I've never had anybody go, I wish Barry didn't say it. Now, we do want Barry to change it up some for us. So it's unique, so people go, oh, I never heard Barry talk about that.
In fact, I'll jump in right on that, because this week I was listening to Fuel. Have you downloaded the Fuel app or been familiar with the Fuel app
No.
yet?
Explain it.
So Todd and Alex was the brains behind
Alex
Sales
Kusishin.
Boomerang. I didn't want to massacre his name. You can try it.
Kusishin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they created now the micro-dose learning platform for sales.
Okay.
And it's actually more than just for sales. It started for sales, but it's really just a growth platform for everybody, and it's segmented into microdosing. All the training is 2 to 3 minutes. And I was in the car this weekend, and I said, okay, I'm gonna take some doses. And so I was listening to Alex interview. What does world-class customer service mean to you? And he interviews a bunch of different people with the same question. So it's really nice to hear all these successful people answer the same question in a different light. And one of them was a professional speaker who won like the Golden something award with Toastmasters out of 20,000 Toastmasters, the number one speaker. And he says, my secret is I make every presentation custom to who I'm speaking for. And so I think that's a really good skill. If you're a professional speaker and you customize your presentation for who your audience is, it'll have a much greater impact than if you just used a canned stock presentation.
Yeah, like a good comedian that talks about whatever city he's in.
Yeah.
Or she's in. They're really good about it going, I went to the local restaurant and I thought I ordered the right Texican meal, but evidently I ended up on a bull and,
Yeah, that type of thing, for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely, when you can make it relevant to the people in the audience, they're going to be a lot more engaged.
Yes.
Well, that was something we learned on the radio show, too, when we were learning messaging, which was a real basic thing that we had to learn also, is, and the owners of the station are the ones that taught us that. They came in and said, stop saying everyone. Stop saying you guys out there. And we're like, what do you mean? And they said, you're only talking to one person. They're in their car by themselves.
Right.
There's no everyone with them.
That's right.
It's just them. And
That's
we're
right.
like, oh.
Yeah.
So then you start to change the way you speak, and you're only speaking to one person.
And that's the way you should be speaking.
Every
You're
time.
100%. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely an art to this. I'm just curious with the TED Talk style, you now have to add more speakers because you have more time, right?
Well, we don't have a problem with speakers now.
Okay.
Which is nice because
Yeah.
the platform is really good. We do a really good job of making sure that before, during, and after they get love. A lot of times you just get your dose at the event.
Yep.
Well, we're prepping everybody ahead of time. By the time they show up for the event in October, they're going to know who our speakers are, all about them, why they need to listen to them, what their topics are going to be. Same with our vendor. And our vendors are not sponsors, they're partners because we vet them first. These are not just anybody who wants to pay us dollars.
Sure.
We actually say no to some of our sponsors, and we're actually shrinking down how many sponsors we're going to have to make sure each one gets more love.
Yeah.
And because we want to make sure that all the audience and anybody that's part of Momentum Builder and Sales Mastery understand who they are and why it's important versus, so we're actually making the stage the safe zone.
Okay.
So the ballroom, no pitching, no recruiting
Okay.
allowed. And it's going to be in their contract.
Yep.
So that it'll make us do a lot better because nobody, even the vendors don't like pitching.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to be pitched too.
Yeah.
And it takes away, we've watched vendors do a great job. They got this wonderful platform that you really should be utilizing or know about. And then they pitch for 15 minutes and it takes away all that they did.
Yeah.
So now we're forcing everybody to basically not do that and be more creative on how to create value and let people know about them and their product versus a commercial that no one's going to watch anyways.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're changing things up quite a bit.
Is it a 2-day event?
It's actually kind of 4. It's 14th through the 17th, October 14th through the 17th. But we do an opening night just to get everybody's adrenaline going.
Okay.
People can come in,
Check-ins
check in. Yeah, exactly. Get the
It
check-in,
lightens the
flights.
check-in the next morning.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we have a networking party the first night. So
Okay.
everybody can start getting pumped up.
It's for the whole
see
event.
their friends. Yeah, the whole event in the vendor area. So the vendors get love right off the
Yep.
bat. And we have a party. We could bring a DJ and
Nice.
food and drink, and everybody start networking immediately because really that's
Setting the
a lot
stage.
of the true
Yep.
value is the networking because you don't
Definitely.
know who you're going to meet that's going to change your life.
Yep.
You see friends in the industry you only see at the event,
Yep.
that type of thing. So we start off with that, and then you have 2 full days. With it, again, we'll have nice, fun stuff to do. We always try to change it up, make sure you're not just falling asleep at the event and
Yeah.
having a good time. And then it ends on Friday in a half day.
Okay.
So people can go home, do what they need to
So
do.
it's,
that type of
in the
thing.
morning you do something to kind of culmination of the entire event, the last day.
Yes,
And
yes.
usually the keynote speaker. at the
Keynote,
end.
and then Todd, who he opens and closes like no one.
Got it. And so, is that the same format that Sales Mastery had?
It's similar.
Similar.
Very similar. That's why
So
Todd felt because he didn't do his event the last 2 years, so we asked him to speak at our event. And he saw how we ran the event, and he liked it. Luckily, he's like, wow, you guys do a great job.
Okay.
I'm like, we should. I just mirrored you, Todd.
Right.
Because he always had a very successful, great, value-added event. Now he likes that we have a little different personality to him. He's so good at value-added content, and then our energy is a little different. It's a little more lighthearted and fun, which he likes. He's very excited. So he's more excited about this event than his prior 30 events.
That's awesome.
I will say that it hasn't always been like that. Don tried to kill us once. In 2021, we did virtual. And so we had a studio, and Don got very excited. And we had about 40 speakers or something
At
like
least.
that. I don't know what it was. It was ridiculous. And because we were in the studio, and some people were comfortable with COVID, some people were not. So some people came into the studio live, but we did a lot of, it was a
Interviews.
studio where we had TVs here, and we did a lot of
And we had a
Zoom interviews.
professional
Yeah.
studio with American Dream TV let
Yep.
us use their studio.
So days 4 and days 5.
We did
of the
5 days.
event, we were almost dead.
Yikes.
Like we couldn't take it anymore. We were cross-eyed and tired, and Don had dancing contests between people. I mean, so we've tried a lot of things.
Yes.
And
Well, we got a lot of speakers that year because they didn't have a job.
Yeah. that's
COVID,
right.
all the events were canceled.
There's no connectivity.
So we were able to, I'm like, I can get this person. We got Jesse Itzler,
Yeah.
almost a billionaire, and his wife's,
we just had Jesse for
Blakely.
one of our
yeah,
events.
Sarah Blakely.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that we
he's
put
a
on.
cool cat.
Yeah.
He's in this. I just saw his post yesterday. It was all about fasting. He's now fasting 24 hours a day, once a week for the entire year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys want, we got some extra big ass calendars in here.
Oh, you
Oh,
do?
yeah, you do?
we had
Do
Oh,
big
yeah,
ass
yeah,
calendars.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
give
yeah.
it to you before we leave.
Yeah,
we have
said-
extras.
Yeah.
So, you guys have learned a lot. I mean, that's a lot. Going through COVID and having to make those changes and adapt to that. I bet you don't want to do that again. The live event.
we like the
really
live
is-
events.
Yeah.
And that's why we're hoping that it's coming back. Because this is too hard to do on your own.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And because of COVID, so many people working remotely, we're trying to bring the community back, and that way you're part of something bigger than you.
Yeah.
And you have our goal was my legacy, and thank you, Gino, for going with it, is I want to provide the best resource for the housing industry, not just mortgage, but also real estate, financial
Okay.
planning, insurance, because we all work with the same clients.
Yes.
And we all should be working together to do a better job. But sales is sales,
Yep.
mindset's mindset, challenges are challenges, health's health. So we're trying to expand it to that. And it'd be the number one resource. If you want good coaches, here's 12, 15, 20 amazing coaches. Choose one.
Yeah.
here's the tools you should be using. Here's some events you should be going to. Here's some discounts for this. Here's podcasts you should be listening to. We're doing coaching calls on a regular basis, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that it's just a great resource for
I
everybody.
love it. I love it.
And I think just to touch on that a little bit, it's super important that we start to act cohesively when we're advising people. It's something that we tried to do years ago with a magazine. Now, we built our own little group. It was called America's Professional Resource Group. And the whole concept was that when a client came in, we brought them into our ecosystem, and they would speak to a life insurance professional, an estate attorney, a CPA, ourselves, and our insurance professional. And now we could all have a conversation about how do we best serve this family.
Yeah.
And if you think about it,
Are you still doing that?
No.
We'll
it's just one of those things.
we'll probably
relaunch
rebuild it.
Yeah. I tried that early in my career, and it was not easy.
No.
Because
busy people.
picked me for a reason, and they may not have picked the guy that I picked for them, and it diluted my value when that was not a good mesh.
Wow.
And so I tried that. I really did. I had my CPA. I had my financial advisor. I built this great team, and I was thinking, shit, we're going to get them all the way through, give them their insurance, do the whole thing, and it turned people off. And so I had stopped doing that.
It is very
too.
hard.
Yeah.
The referral system is very difficult. We learned too, because some of the people we put on the team ended up not being the right people.
Right.
But they were already on the team, like, I paid, I'm part of this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you're not that as good as we thought.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
you're not available, or you didn't give good advice to the clients or great service, and it does reflect on you.
Yep,
There's got to
it
be
sure
a hybrid way to make that work if somebody really leaned into that and figured out, okay, I'm going to have 3 types of CPAs. I'm going to have 2 types of insurance brokers. And, there's got to be a way to lean into that, but it's got to be, again, the whole concept, though, is that we have got to have this family's best interest in mind, and we have to think cohesively, because a good tax strategy could hurt your mortgage strategy.
Yeah.
We've seen
And
it
all that
1,000
really
times.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do.
And we do the same thing with Momentum Builder. If we just referred your podcast and one coach and one CRM and one credit company or one appraisal management company, and they weren't perfect, you're like, oh, now we're just saying, here's the best. We vetted them. They're good. They're great people. Choose who fits you best.
Yeah, I think that's a better approach.
Yeah.
I want to, at the very end here, I want you guys to tell us when the conference is and all of that. So I want to give you guys a chance to pitch that. Also, what you're going to call it, because I think you're kind of meshing the two this year, but there's a future name. So let's not forget before we close out to really pitch this thing, because I'm a big fan. But I want to talk a little bit about the blueprint. You guys have been hugely successful in the mortgage business. You've taken a career path that not everybody wants to take as an originator, but many people want to start as an originator, find themselves good leaders. Some aren't. Some are better off staying in origination, find themselves good leaders, go into branch management, go into senior management, go into owning their own company, doing other things. And you guys kind of created your own blueprint for this, right? And so you've been hugely successful in driving big teams and big numbers. And I'd like to kind of have you share with our audience, those that are in the business and not, because they can extrapolate, if they are in a different business than mortgage, but what really has attributed along the way to your success? Like, what were those decision points? What did you decide to do? What was, something that didn't work that then you pivoted and tried something else? Because you've really built something that at this point is somewhat portable. Like you could take all your knowledge and you could place that somewhere else and still be successful.
My advice for someone selling their home: number 1, do it yourself and save. Number 2, use HomePie.
HomePie makes it easy to buy or sell without an agent. I can list a home in minutes and start receiving offers right away from buyers.
When we discovered that we didn't have to lose $40,000 in agent commission just to upsize to a larger home, it was an obvious choice.
List your home for free at homepie.com. Keep your piece of the pie.
We feel faster.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot to that.
There is a lot to that, actually.
I'll let Gino dive in on, because I've been kind of spearheading a lot. But the one thing I will say is mentorship. A lot of people think they can just figure it out on their own, or I know better than them. when you could be learning from somebody who's already been there, done that, and learned through the hard knocks like us. If they talk to us, we'll be like, we already tried that. Right? Like we tell our team, they're like, oh, I mean, you've seen it where somebody goes, oh, I'm going to put my picture on at the shopping carts and all that, and I'll for sure pay for it. I just need one deal. And you're going to go, don't waste your freaking time.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time, and it actually devalues you because now you're on shopping carts, and that's not the way to go.
Yeah.
And they're like, how do you know? Because I've done it,
Yeah.
you know?
That's right.
I've made a lot of these mistakes. So I would just say getting good mentors and paying attention. That's why we love community. And that's why we love the sales mastery teaching us. And now we're trying to do the same for more. Just being good mentors and learning from those who already made the mistakes ahead of you.
I absolutely love that. I was on a podcast, a virtual podcast this morning. I was a guest, and that was a big part of our topic. Was the mentorship. I had a mentor when I started. And the problem is that most people don't really listen and do what their mentor says. They know better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if we back up a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
This is my mentor, right?
Okay.
I came into the mortgage industry. I was a loan officer.
Okay.
I was a broker in Glendale, and I was, it was 2005, 2004, the era of easy mortgages.
Yeah.
And so I was a hotshot kid. I was like, I'm good at this, right? I was like number 4 in that office. The other guys were crazy. I couldn't ever get close to those guys. They were doing 30, 40, 50 loans a month, and I was happy I was doing like 10 deals a month.
Yeah.
And, then that everything melted down, and I went to go work with Don. And when I went to go work with Don, Don's like, oh, hey, kid, what do you know? He's trying to figure out what I know, what I don't know. He's like, so how are your FHA skills? And I'm like, FHA?
Can't spell it.
Yeah, no, not so much. And so he says, yeah, that's cute. Okay, here's a book. Read it. Do you remember those books?
The 4155.
Yeah, but what were the books called that we used to use? The blue books and the green books, remember?
Yeah.
Anyways, they were guidelines that were printed in a book.
Each year. You got a new one each year.
Yeah, I
with
do
guidelines
remember
and
that.
stuff.
You
Fannie Mae,
refresh-
Freddie Mac,
Yes,
FHA books.
That's right.
Yeah, and so he gave me a pile of books. And I came back, I don't know, like a week or two later, and I was like, okay, I got it. What's next? And he's like, yeah, right. And I'm like, what do you mean, yeah, right? Like, you told me to read the book. I read the book. And he starts testing me, asking me questions. Can I get a gift? Can I do this? How could I do that? And I'm like, just knocking him out of the park. He's like, yeah, I guess you did read the book. So moral of the story is, yes, you have to do what your mentors teach you. If they've already gone down that road and they already know better, and the reason you're going to them is to learn something, if they tell you to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Take action.
But I'm telling you, and you guys have to have the same experience. Most will not. And when I say most, I'm talking about maybe 1% will.
Yeah.
Okay, because I do a program called the 90-Day Blueprint. Okay, and this is for brand new LOs, and it's for LOs that need a reset because they never built the right foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I started in the business, 1993, I had a mentor. He was about 20 years older, 15, 20 years older than I was. He had been in the business for a long time. And he told me what to do. And I was 25. I came just out of college. He said, this is what you do. I just did it. I didn't question it. Okay, that's what I do. That's my job.
Good for you.
And so he had me start with a CRM. And back then, and I don't know if you'll both remember this or neither of you, but so you can imagine this is DOS-based.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is early 90s. It was called Telemagic. Okay. Okay. So look it up, and maybe Chris, when we publish this, you could bring it up. But Telemagic was one of the first CRMs ever done. In fact, the founder of that, still around, he lives in San Diego, and he's known as the godfather of CRM. So it's called Telemagic, okay? And DOS-based, and this is when I told you, he said, go and start with your database. He says, everybody that you know that knows you by name or by face needs to be in there. He said, go get your parents' phone book. Anybody you grew up with that knows you from, coming over for holidays and all that, put them in there. Your grandparents, your friends from high school, anybody you met in college, put them all in there. Now, this is before email was really used. Not before it existed, but nobody used it. And
you got mail.
And yeah, that's right. That was that era. But I put everybody in there, and I had their physical address. So I'd call them up. I'd say, "What's your address? I want to send you, mailers." And I still do it. Every other month, we send out a postcard to my database, which is enormous, and a lot of it's outdated because unless you send first class, you don't know when somebody moves. But I've got about 15,000 in there. But it started in 1993, and so that enabled me to have repeat clients, to have their kids, their grandkids, the referrals. And my business was always based off referrals because my mentor said to do that. Here's the other thing he said to do. Okay. This will resonate with you guys. So back then, early 90s, early mid 90s, very big in the mortgage industry based on where rates were at and products that were out was the FHA and VA Streamline. That's what we called them there.
Yeah.
Okay. And remember, there's no email, there's no internet, none of that stuff. So how do you get to these people? He said, you get your title rep, have them give you a list. Tell them what areas, what zip codes, anybody with an FHA or VA loan.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a template. He gives me a letter, a template. He says, you're going to do a mail merge. Okay, this is slow. This is like Windows 3.1 slow. Okay, you're going to do a mail merge with that list into this letter. You're going to print them out. And they had some big printers in the office. And, I'd insert the letterhead. I'd be there late at night. Nobody's around. Insert the letterhead. They had an envelope printer. He goes, and you print them all out. You're going to sign every letter. So there I am at night with my newlywed wife in our first home, and she's helping me, and we're signing everything, and we're stuffing them in envelopes. And I would do that perpetually. And so every week I'd walk with that bin to the post office, and I'd sit with the postmaster to do bulk mail. And they'd show me how to fill out the form and help me with it, and a super sweet old lady there in Granada Hills. And I'd mail it out. And then and I'm not exaggerating when I say I'd sit by my phone 2 days later, and it'd just start ringing off the hook. And I would answer it, and I had my prospect sheet, and I'd fill it out, and then I'd go out and drive to them using my Thomas guide to get to their house.
That's right.
And I would take loan applications, and I was a machine. And when I say I was a machine, so I'm in my first 14 months of the business, and I'm closing 5-6 loans a month, okay? Regularly.
Solid.
And by the way, back then, for you loan officers that are out there,
$100,000 loan amount?
117 was a Fannie Mae limit. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. But it's all relative, right?
Yeah,
I don't like to,
yeah.
Yeah, we're old timers, but it's
I'm
all
more from
relative.
like the 302 era. And then 417. It was stuck at 417 for a long time.
long time.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'd sit by and I'd go out and I'd take these, and there's some story. I won't get into these, but there's some stories about people I visited and the way they answered the door and all sorts of crazy things. But I would just take loan applications one after the other, and I'm closing these deals, and I'm like, it was easy for me. And what I was going to say is, I never even worried about the commission. And back then, and you guys will remember this, 50-50 split. Yeah. That's standard.
Yeah.
50-50 split. We did not participate in the SRP. It was separate. It wasn't built in pricing.
We didn't even know what it was, hardly.
We didn't even know, unless you really were in tune with somebody who owned a company, you didn't even know what that was. But it was like, I just listened to what he said, and I followed it, and I did it, and that led me to being one of those guys who was closing 40, 50 loans a month. And I built a team to do it, and I built a conveyor belt. But if I didn't listen to my mentor and I didn't follow him like you did with Don and so forth, I would never have been able to do that. I would never started a company after that and gone through this. So you guys each had kind of developed your blueprint, and people will look at you in the mortgage business. They'll see you up on stage at Momentum Builder, and they'll go, man, these guys have made it. So I just would like to know just a little bit more detail about that process, like where somebody could listen to this and really relate to it and go, all right, that's something I could do. Not just listen to your mentor, but like, what are those steps that you took, and where did you bump into a wall and have to pivot? Like, maybe give us a little bit more detail about that. You want to start on?
I was going to actually jump in real quick.
Yeah, if you
I don't
could.
want
Go
to
ahead,
forget
Gino.
this, is take big risks.
There you go.
The number one thing that we've grown is the moments in time that we've taken massive risks. And so 2 examples of that.
And they don't always work out.
No, they don't. They don't.
That's why they call them risks.
That's why they're risks. But we've also yielded the biggest rewards when we have taken some risks. One of them was moving from loan officer, branch manager to P&L system. When we moved from retail to P&L, that was a huge risk. In fact, we were broke for years. Okay, but that's where we built our business. That's where we learned the skills. That's where we really learned the mortgage business instead of being loan officers. I think that was a defining moment for us, definitely. So that was in 2012.
Yeah.
And the second big one, and this was really the scariest one, and sometimes you think maybe this was not the right move and you want to go back, but you never do. Don't look back, is when we stopped producing. When we went non-producer, that was the second giant risk, but that's when we exploded.
Yeah.
And even today, I tell people, I'm like, look, the places you're looking at, if we're having a recruiting meeting, I say, well, where are you looking at? And they say, well, I'm looking here, I'm looking here, I'm looking here. That's cute. Your manager competes with you?
Yeah.
I go, do you really want that? Or do you want someone that only eats if you eat? I'm only successful if you're successful. Our goals are in 100% alignment.
Yeah.
And I think that resonates with people.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely good point and part of the blueprint of being successful. I don't originate anymore. I wouldn't even know how to.
We'll take like a best friend's loan and still stay really engaged, and it's super painful, and we're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But it's because we're not putting in the reps anymore. It's like when you stop going to the gym for a year and you go and you do it, you come out sore.
And obviously you go to the gym, nice and done, by the way. You can tell you're in shape. We appreciate that.
I do every day.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, post 50, you've got to. I mean, longevity is about muscle.
Yeah, we go almost every day. 5
5
a.m., that's our first meeting.
Yeah, Gino
told me
went
this
through a
morning.
massive transformation, and I'm super proud of you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, my son tells me this morning, we're on the way to the gym, we're in the car, and he's like, Dad, we have to raise the intensity on our workouts. And I'm like, I know you're right, but damn.
I
want to do that.
Try motocrossing at 60.
Oh, yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah, for sure.
Most physically demanding sport in the world.
Extremely.
Well, and this is a good business lesson too. It's just easy to get comfortable, right? Yep. I remember the first time I was able to lift 60-pound dumbbells. Oh my God, I was able to lift 60 pounds. Well, it's easy to just stay at 60 then.
Yeah.
What makes you want to push to 70 or 80 and take that risk where you can
Your
get
son.
hurt? Huh?
Your son.
Yeah.
How old is your son?
He's just turned 16.
That is so awesome.
And he
you
goes
work
with
out
me
together.
A good, 50-60% of the time. He wakes up in the morning and comes with me at 5 a.m.
Which I can't believe.
I friggin' love that. Yeah. I work out with my son, not as often as I'd like. He keeps a different schedule than I do.
Yeah.
But we go all the time. And so I have, we try to document things. Now he's bigger than I am, that son of a bitch. But,
well, my son gained like 20 pounds of muscle in one summer. I'm like, what the hell?
He's at that age.
Yeah. He ate like
well,
crazy.
He's
he had
growing.
So much fun.
He's got, he's at that.
Yeah, you have all the right
stage.
hormones working for you at the right time. So, which is actually part of that too. I said, do it now because it's easier when you're younger.
That's right.
And so even for somebody young in the business, and what you were describing, the work that you were just describing that you were doing, stuffing envelopes and sending people their closing statements and all those things that we used to do is great advice today, not only for the newbies, but for those that need a reset, is act as your rookie self.
That's right.
I was just going to go there.
And that's what I teach them in my 90-day blueprint.
Yeah.
It's all about building the foundation with the CRM and doing all those things and spending every single day doing that. It won't feel like work. It won't feel like you're accomplishing things. But believe me, at the end of the 90 days, if you do it, and by the way, in the last 3 sessions that I gave of this, one person took it all the way, and they're closing loans regularly every single month. But one out of
well, COVID kind of messed with our industry quite a bit. Made them honestly a little lazy because we have a team, and sorry those of you who are listening, but we have some really good producers, like good people and stuff. But we're giving them advice as you give advice, and they just won't do what is required right now. They just won't. I'm not going to open houses. I'm not going to call my database. I'm not going to have meetings with the agents. I'm not going to. The things you and I wouldn't even think about, that's what you just do.
It's your job.
Back in the day, I mean, I made deviled eggs till 3 a.m. every Thursday for my agents because it was unique and different. Like I wanted to go and do 300 deviled eggs at 2 a.m.
Right.
But it differentiated me and it made everybody remember me. And I threatened to take the deviled eggs if they didn't give me business. And you do what you need to do.
Right. Who would
Stuff
have
in
known
envelopes.
that eggs was maybe not RESPA compliant?
Yeah, and they called
Might
me
not even have been RESPA back then.
And they called me the Eggman. I'm like, I don't care. They can call me shithead as long as they're sending me business. I don't care.
Yeah.
But they're having a hard time doing that. The hard work right now. It's really weird.
Why?
Because, like I said, they got pretty lazy. They were making more money than doctors doing really just answering a phone for a while. I mean, but when we kept getting to refi the same people over and over and over, and people are buying homes because rates were so freaking low, it got pretty easy for our industry. Now it's tough because we don't have very many refis. The interest rates are high, so you have to become an expert and do the things that are hard right now. And they just don't understand if they do the hard stuff right now, when the market turns, we know it well. You've been through a cycle. I've gone through 4 or 5 cycles now. He even threatened to quit at one time. I'm like, no, I want another cycle. The cycles are good when you get to the other side of it. We just got, this one's been a tough one. I will admit, it's been 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And, we're all waiting for the cycle, but now we're down to 93,000
licensees this year.
Right, and we know 40,000 might be actually doing a loan a month.
Yeah. Oh, I doubt even that high.
Right,
honestly.
So the other side, it's just, but you got to do the basics to build that foundation.
Yeah.
So when it turns, you're going to kill it.
That's right.
Like some people are so lazy to like, oh, I'll do refis. I'm like, for who?
Dude,
You've done 20 loans in the last 2 years. Who are you doing refis for if you don't build the foundation? Oh, when the market opens up, I'll get more deals. From who? You have 4 agents now. You used to have 30.
Yeah.
You got to put the foundation in.
Yeah, I will say this too. It's really interesting and something you can protect against if you're in your 40s and you think that you'll always get business is find younger business. Because your agents aged out.
They're dead.
Wow.
No, I mean, they're dead.
Some
They're
are.
aged out. So they've aged out. I'm just
they
saying.
weren't doing motocross.
Like if we were still depending on his database for our livelihood, we'd starve.
Yeah.
Right? So find youth in your lead sources.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good thing if you could keep young. And so he did it a little bit by adding me in, and then we did it when we brought our team in. Our team's younger than us.
Yeah.
And so I think keeping
the other
youth
thing
is
you could
important.
do, Gino, is just migrate your product. So at our age, we should be just doing reverse mortgages. So,
we talk about that with our we have some
We have
old,
1 or 2 LOs that we
they're
talk
my
about
age.
with them.
I'm like, why don't you? I would, if I was originating and I was in my 60s, I would own the reverse business.
you have no idea how big that opportunity is. We have a division for reverse mortgage, and we have 2 of the top originators that do. They don't even do forward mortgages. They literally don't do them.
You don't need to.
And it is wide open. There's
and it's
no
a
competition.
good product now because a lot of people.
It's a great product
right?
now.
Because
Even
a lot
the
of
jumbo stuff is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great product. I don't want to go down that road, but because we could spend a lot of
tangents
time
all
on
day
that.
long,
But
right?
that is something that you're right. People have got to change the way they do business. If you think about your top producer right now, how much business are they doing? And say in the last
it's a girl
quarter.
right now on our team. I'll say give her some kudos, Claudia Diaz, and she works harder than all of our LOs. We have one other who probably works just as hard, and Scott. Yeah, we got a couple that work really hard, but she does what's needed. Like she goes every single month. She does home buyer seminars. Mm-hmm. And invites home buyer seminars. A lot of people and it started with 20, and then it was 40, and then she gets 90 people in these things.
Where is this at?
Mostly the high desert and Corona.
Well, this is interesting. I think we have to tell this story. So she lives in Sylmar.
Okay.
Does a lot of business in the Antelope Valley, and then when the market turned, and we said you have to find lower loan amounts because the interest rate differential is less impactful in dollars when you have lower loan
affordable areas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically.
And so she said, well, our corporate office is in Corona. Can I use that as home base to throw events? And we said, yeah, of course you can. And so she, even though she lives in Sylmar, I would say at least 30-40% of her business is from Apple Valley, Victorville, that whole area, because she decided that she was going to follow what we told her to do and go get those lower loan amounts. Where we have other people that are like, oh, I can't do a jumbo deal to save my life. I'm like, of course, because just a little bit of price differential. It's $1,000 a month difference.
Yep.
And even in this market, she's doing double digits.
Yeah.
So
she's aiming for 200 units this year.
For what did she do in 24?
Just under 100.
Yeah.
Just under 100 units.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that I want people to literally hear this, that people are doing this kind of business. Mm-hmm. And you said you got 2 other people kind of on her heels. And so those that are struggling to do a loan every other month or, have 3 loans in their pipeline right now, guys, it really boils down to strategy and working hard. And you're doing both wrong. And maybe you have the wrong foundation. Maybe you didn't build the right foundation. Maybe you're not reaching people like you think you are. Maybe you're posting and you're seeing, and nobody's seeing you, and you think you're working. Like you nailed you hit the nail on the head. She pivoted. She wasn't getting the business she thought she would. She followed her mentor's advice. She worked in a different area, and she did 100 deals last year. That's a big statement. And anybody could do that. That's a blueprint. right? That's a blueprint.
Well, now she has a foundation to do 200 next year.
Right, and now it's probably word of mouth. People are telling other people about these homebuyer seminars, right? And so it starts to exponentially. Hey, the same thing happens with Momentum Builder, right? People say about it. Somebody went last year and go, this thing was amazing.
We had 100 people at our first one.
There you go.
At the Burbank Airport Hotel.
The Burbank Marriott, that's right.
And then how many at the largest?
We've gotten up to about 500 to 600 during the worst 3 years of the mortgage industry.
Yep.
And at a difficult time, we realized our idea with Momentum Builder is to help people understand that their the reason we call the Momentum Builder is a lot of people get excited at the end of the year for the new year, and then by March they're like, oh, my year's already up. Because
by March, look what they just did. They just coined, just last week, they coined it Quitter's Day. It was January 10th.
That makes sense.
By most people quit on their goals and their New Year's resolutions by January 10th. We were optimistic, thinking they would get to February or March.
Because the idea because two things happen after a little bit of time. One, they probably didn't change any of their habits, even though they said they would. They went back to their old school. And two, January and February for the real estate industry suck. Bottom line. So we gave them an out saying, hey, traditionally. And so your earnings season is April through September. Let's build your momentum and get you ready to still have your best year ever.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that. And there's no competition.
Right.
Everybody's these other events are toward the end of the year. So now you get a market share on top of that because not everybody goes to every event.
Yeah. Now we rebooted and we had to make a change because what we found out is there's a reason nobody does events in the first part of the year.
That's the reason.
People most of them just went through 4 months of their winter. Yeah. Because that's their slowest time for most. Like we just had one of our best months of the year in December because we kept working when everybody wasn't. But a lot of people don't. Therefore, in January, February, when we're trying to promote the event, get people to go, they're like, oh, I haven't done deals in 4 months and I'm broke.
Yeah.
I can't afford the time or the money to go to the event. So we're pivoting to October so that we can prep people in October to start building their momentum for they close out the year strong.
Different time of year.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention too is that we did a really good job of telling everybody this like early in like September, August, September. So you are working on next year now.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Is like by September you have to be talking to leads in August, September. Those are going to be your deals the next year. So if you do
but now be honest with me, how many of your team actually listen to that? It's a fraction. Is it 5%?
No, a decent amount of ours. That's why we had our best month.
Okay,
because
25-30%.
Okay, that's a good. That's very good. Yeah. So who are your biggest competitors for the event?
It's a little.
Or did you acquire your biggest competitor?
Well, we did actually, and actually, Todd came to us. He's like, I don't know why we do two events when we can just do one big event together.
There you go.
I'm like, well, let's talk. And then he decided we wanted to carry on his legacy, so he offered for us to buy it, and we're like, we would love to, and he's going to be a part of it for at least 3 years.
Beautiful.
And he's again our mentor. I mean, he's still helping us through it. I mean, we talk to Todd at least 2-3 times a week. I mean, which is a blessing for me. I get to talk to my mentor and friend on a regular basis. But he's still giving us advice of like we'll go, hey, we thought about doing this. He's like, let me tell you why that won't work. Because he's got 30 years under his belt.
Yeah.
And him and his assistant Alicia will go, we tried that, just we thought we can do it. Like the early part of the year, they're like, we tried to do early part of the year, but it's just bad timing.
How about breakouts? We're like, breakout rooms. He's like, no breakout rooms. Been there, done that. So the same thing that we do.
It does.
I do agree with that.
And it's distracting. And you're like me. You're high energy like us, and you want to learn everything you can. I'm like, well, who do I choose?
Right.
That drives me insane.
But it also sucks for the presenters.
It does.
They get shortchanged.
Yeah. They do. You're now instead of being in front of 1,500, you're in front of a 50 or 100.
Right.
Which you can still impact, but you're like, I want to be on the big stage.
So like I was in a breakout room this last year at our annual AIM Fuse, which is the mortgage broker side. It was overflowing. Like because of my subject, there was a lot of interest, and there were probably 120 people. But standing up outside the door, everything. The guy before me, there was open tables. And I felt really terrible for him because it was still a good subject, but there's also all the other things at play, and there may have been something else going on, and like all these. So I think that's a good move. But I really love the idea that you guys did move it to December, or I'm sorry, October, I think that is also when the Infuse event is. I think it's early October, if I'm not mistaken.
There's AIM and there's MBA in there, so it's a busy time.
Yeah,
but they're different. There's brokers, sources. There's executive ones. Ours is more for the traditional housing community, you know, on a regular basis and stuff. So yeah, are we going to potentially lose some to other events type thing? But ours is a little different. We're building a community of you and me, you know, that type of thing, and we're including more and more execs to help them. We're actually having a leadership opening for like 2 or 3 hours for leaders.
Okay.
So we can help them. We're gonna be doing other events. So Sales Mastery is one of Momentum Builders events, and then we're gonna have a leadership conference. We're gonna do other things to continually add value throughout the entire year. And just Sales Mastery is gonna be one of our bigger events.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
with
say
Todd.
that's our flagship event.
I love the direction you guys are going. I'm super excited for you.
Well, we'll get your advice too. We have a think tank. We
Yeah.
have a think tank of a 2 dozen people that are people you know, like Dave Savage, Bill Dallas. I can go down the list. Barry Habib's. All them. They're on our think tank. And we're like, how can we make Momentum Builder more valuable as a brand, as a resource, and as an event?
And I think that the year-round support is something that no other event does. Everybody else is flash in the pan.
That's right.
You're there for 2 or 3 days. You capture what you can. I always say it's like the cash machine, you know, with the fan and dollar bills, and you're trying to grab as many as you can. Where this is more like an annuity. You're going to get dripped on all year long.
Yeah, I love it. Before we get to kind of a wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't go back and ask Don about any big injuries you've had during the time you were doing Supercross and Motocross all these years.
Do you have another 2 hours?
just talk to us about your biggest injury.
My biggest injury. So, like anything, for sales, that's why I compare the two. We have our ups and downs. Our industry has our ups and downs. God knows we're going through it now. It's how you come out of it, and you're going to have setbacks. And one of my worst was, which pretty much ended my career for a little while, and then you forget, kind of like a woman having a baby. I guess I'll have another one after I forgot about the pain. Unfortunately, my bike seized over a triple jump.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I broke my left shoulder, my right tib fib, and my left femur at the same time. So I broke both my legs.
Was that on film?
Unfortunately not. Well, fortunately, I don't know if I'd ever want to see it again, but it was ugly. Like, all my friends were like, what the hell?
So it seized in midair. When you landed, it was like all the brakes were just, like, worse than
Actually,
all
I
the
was
brakes
going
on.
head first into the jump. So our biggest fear, no surprise to anyone listening, is paralyzation.
Yeah.
It's not even death.
Yep.
It's I just don't want to be in the chair.
Yeah.
And I have friends that are in chairs, and they say it sucks. And so I was able to push off my bike enough to go to the other side of the thing, and I clipped my legs on the top of the jump and then flew to the back side of the jump 20 feet down, and that's where I broke.
But the bike didn't hit you. You broke hitting the
But
ground.
just the way I hit, and I broke my femur over my knee braces. And and the helicopter pad was out, so I had to wait 50 minutes for an ambulance to come, drive over the dirt and rocks and all that, and then drive another 50 minutes just to get to there. And I have a rod down the middle of my femur and a plate and 8 screws in my ankle, 36 broken bones overall.
Crazy. When you are have
Sometimes
an injury,
you would think he has a plate in his head, but he doesn't.
I just can't turn on the microwave.
When you have an injury to that extent, are you in shock or do you feel the pain?
You actually get better at it, unfortunately. At first, when you get hurt enough, you learn how to relax. Because when you tense up, that's when the pain hits and stuff like that. In fact, when I broke both my legs, I was calm. I pulled myself off the track. I knew I broke my leg because it didn't follow me. I had to drag it. And my friends were like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, no, my shoulder doesn't move. I know I broke my tib fib again, and I broke my femur. And they're like, "No, you didn't. You'd be screaming your eyes out." And I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure it's broken." They're like, "How can you tell?" And I moved the top of my femur back and down, and they're like, "Oh, stop!" So, but it was painful, and then the shock goes away, and then you start feeling more pain without a doubt. Yeah. And then you're like morphine bleeds. And that's the other bummer is I've broken 36 bones, and I can't take pain meds. They make me sick.
When's your next race?
I'm gonna race. I just raced the Vet World Championships. Top 10 in the world in 2 classes.
Congrats.
So now I'm going to keep the momentum going because I trained so hard for 6 months, lost 25 pounds, and figured out how to find ways to go practice motocross during our 2 jobs we run. But you make it work. And now I want to carry the momentum, so I'm going to race the 2-stroke national championships in April, both the 60 Pro class and the 50 Pro class again. And then I'm going to race the Mammoth Motocross in June, which is one of the biggest West Coast races.
Man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So.
Do you ever watch him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He was on the line with me.
Yeah, because I grew up racing go-karts. So for me,
Yep, I know.
2 cars, 2 wheels, 4 wheels, it's all, as long as it has, we used to say, as long as it makes noise and it has cylinders, I'm in. And whether it's boats or whatever it is. And I guess without cylinders and stuff, we'll just have to say, as long as it goes fast, we'll still do it because electric is taking over.
Yeah.
He's got electric motocross bikes now.
I don't have one.
He doesn't have one yet.
But they're out there racing, and there's a challenge because they can change their horsepower on the track, and we can't. You know, they can go, oh, I have 80 horsepower on the start, and then I'll dial it down to 50 while I'm riding around the track. I'm like, that's not right.
Well, and
and you can't hear them.
You don't know?
No, all of a sudden somebody's passing you. Like, what the hell? You thought a ghost
being a car collector and all the stuff, I love things. I love that nostalgia, the smell of gas burning and the noise and the mufflers.
Oh, yeah.
I love all that. But my kids don't care. And then I got my first electric car, and I love it. I'm like, oh, my God, this instant torque and grip everywhere. And I'm like, I could see where 20 years from now, we're going to be looking back on gas engines as if they were steam engines.
I don't think it'll happen that quickly, but we'll see. All right, guys, tell everybody how they can reach you. Tell them when are you calling it Momentum Builder this year? What are you calling it?
So that's a good question because we've battled with the whole, do we combine the Momentum Builder with the Sales Mastery and call it like Momentum Mastery, which we still may, but we're a little bit afraid because Todd's built an amazing brand. Yeah. That's been very successful, changed our entire industry, because remember, there wasn't anybody but a sales mastery for a long time before other events came. So we wanted to keep that brand for now so people recognize it, that we're bringing it back. So it's Sales Mastery powered by Momentum Builder.
Okay.
So it kind of has both our brands so people know that it's both of us
for
combining together to make a super brand and bring even more value than we ever did before.
But Momentum Mastery keeps coming up over and over and over again. So that could be something in the cards.
Because everybody wants to build momentum, right?
All right. Well, why don't we, those of you that are listening, if you've got some really great ideas.
There you go.
Maybe you have a think tank for that, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So when is it this year?
October 14th through the 17th at the Dallas Hyatt.
And website for registration?
salesmasteryevent.com. And there's we have a special on right now because it will sell out without doubt. Because between our 2 brands, it'll sell out at 1,500. We're guessing.
That's the max.
Yeah, and we already have companies that are going to they're ponying up their sales rallies tied to it, that type of thing, bringing in hundreds of their own team and that type of thing because they know the value of it.
And how much a ticket right now?
Right now, the early bird's $795. There's a special at $695 right now.
Okay.
And the regular price is $12.95. So each month it'll keep inching its way up.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, the idea is, look, like every other business, cash flow in the event business. Cash flow is a struggle. So the reason we give tickets earlier is to create cash flow, so we can pay for speakers and pay for hotel deposits and things of that nature. So it's that's the way it works. But the reality is, the sooner it sells out, the better for everybody, because then we can really focus on the experience. That's the other thing we didn't talk too much about is we want to make sure that it's not just an event, that it's an experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've already done things this year that we didn't do before, like people get a handwritten note. People get a message from Todd when they sign up.
We're doing monthly calls.
Okay,
if you register now as opposed to just waiting until October, Todd has already agreed to join us and people like you, because you add value. We're doing monthly strategy calls. During this to build momentum, you're going to get fuel for 90 days, the fuel app, to get microdosing of performance enhancement.
Oh, that's a great benefit, guys. So, hey, if you're watching or listening to this right now, really take action because getting that added value, that will probably pay for itself regardless of the cost of the 100%. Event. If you show up or don't show up, you're going to get that benefit.
Yeah,
so
we've always done 100% money back guarantee. If you come to the event and you don't feel like you had a great experience, we'll give you your money back.
Yeah, we've never had to do that, though.
Never had to. I mean, what'd you say?
Todd's opening night alone is worth it. Like, you're already going, I already got enough value already. And then the networking is phenomenal.
Yeah, awesome. And how can somebody reach you if they want to, Gino?
My easiest is just Gino Fronti on Instagram. I'm on Instagram all the time. That's where I spend most of my time now. I probably respond to DMs and texts as fast as everything. Email, gotta say, email's getting a little old, right? A little stale. So DMs are good, and if not, 818-652-9739. I've had that number since I was in high school.
Awesome. And it's Fronti for those of you who don't know.
Yeah.
And Don, how about you?
A couple ways, because I'm the one who's kind of handling most of the event stuff. So if they, a company or somebody wants to find out more about it or potential sponsors, don@momentumbuilder.com. And you can follow me on my Instagram, Don Goettling24, which is my motocross number. And I've been posting a lot about my racing, my training, who I'm training with, my weight, all that stuff, so people learn, about my journey of training for this big race and stuff, which included my accident, because I wasn't going to post it. And Gino's like, no, that's part of your journey.
It is part of your journey. And I was on your Instagram, and there was some really cool video on there. And because if I'm going to screw it up, somebody else is going to not be able to spell that. It's Goettling.
Correct.
Okay,
correct. Goettling, but but everybody called me Goatling. So my nickname, and I have my own logo, everything called the Goat.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. All right, guys. Hey, that was another edition of The Blueprint. And if you felt that we brought you value, we do it every week. Keep tuning in, subscribe, follow, share. All of that helps out. Really appreciate you. We'll see you next time.